he operated under the theory that failure is not an option.
George was very detail-oriented, very committed to doing the job to the best of his ability.
I think he just has that gene in his body that says it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done right now.
He was really the champion that made SBA lending possible in San Diego.
Champion, competitor, connector. That's how colleagues and friends describe former Small Business Administration District Director George Chandler, who retired from the SBA in 2005 after serving 25 years.
He was very serious and dedicated and supported the small business community, which to me at that time I thought was very unusual, because here you had a gentleman with a electrical engineering background, came from NASA, he was a rocket scientist.
He spent 20 years with NASA as an aerospace engineer and flight controller. Chandler worked on Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, and had his hand in landing man on the moon.
It's interesting. A lot of the techniques that we used in mission control are similar to the types of things that you use if you're a very successful business person. You have an analytical approach. You try to watch for problems when they come up. You deal with them immediately. You have to have a great competence. You do some training every now and then. All those things are things that we did in Apollo.
So while Chandler's second career may have been a surprising move, he was up for the mission.
Because my father was in business and had been helped by the Small Business Administration and really respected that loan that he got from them and wanted to be sure that he was timely in paying it back and everything, I think that must have restructured my genes somehow, because I wound up in the same business, and he taught me a lot about business, and I think it did help, and I think it did come full circle, because I got right back into it after a full career of being an engineer.
Once he came to San Diego, he fell in love with the business community. He did everything he could to help the business community. He threw everything he had into it, and he was very passionate about it, and that was very, very impressive.
First time that George looked at me in all seriousness, said, "You know, Terry, I've always found that it's much easier to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission." I knew I had a lot of work to do.
He didn't often pound the table or get real excited, and I think a lot of that is because of his training as an engineer and his time at NASA. Because once you've done that, nothing probably is that important to where you have to have that kind of histrionics. And so he was just a very quiet but effective and incredibly persistent leader.
Persistent enough to drive his district office to the #1 spot in the nation, no matter what it took, like this dunking contest. Chandler was the force behind changes in policy. He was a crucial voice in educating the city about the needs of small businesses, and he created a gateway to growth for countless entities.
I think more than anyone, probably besides our founder, Art Goodman, George really is responsible for the success of CDC Small Business Finance. Our ability to become the largest 504 lender in the nation is really the result of the partnership that we had with George and his leadership at the SBA district office.
For many years, SBA would have the reputation of being a hard agency to get any cooperation from, and George did a great deal of personal outreach, making sure that lenders, especially lenders that he enticed to come into our program, knew that they could contact him anytime there's any kind of a problem.
But the only way the SBA is successful is when people like George Chandler or the other professionals there get involved in the community. You can't just sit back and wait for people to come to you. So George was just out beating the street all the time, working with banks and lenders and other organizations, chambers of commerce. And it was hard to go to a chamber of commerce meeting, a banking industry meeting in this town without seeing George Chandler there.
We always tried to do more, and we always wanted to do the best and to create new ways of helping people, and so we, I think, challenged ourselves.
Chandler says his passion stems from seeing others succeed. That energy was, and still is, contagious.
We got lost going to an appointment a block and a half away from the office. We got in the car and we got lost because we started talking. And we came back to the office and decided we'd just walk there. But we were intense. He was intense and I was intense.
I think the best way I could describe George Chandler is that when I walk into a room, whether it's 10 people or 1,000 people, and I see George Chandler in the room, I make a point to get across the room as fast as I can to say hello to him and talk to him. He's that kind of person. You just want to see him. You want to talk to him. And there's only been a few people in this town that I really put into that category.
Retirement has not slowed George Chandler down. His plate is full of community activities, including the International Community Foundation and the Mainly Mozart organization. He also assists his wife Irene with her thriving business.
I see his legacy as really having built an infrastructure in San Diego to help deliver services to small businesses that's probably unsurpassed in the country.
I think I can honestly say that San Diego would not be where it is today without a person like George Chandler.